Oh my gosh, everybody. This is so exciting. Welcome to this hybrid event, launch party, talk show, I don't know, coronavirus, sit-in, something. I am so glad to be here, and thanks for bearing with the little tech issue there. Obviously, everybody's online these days, so servers can't handle it. It is a weird world right now. I mean, it's snowing in Denver in the middle of April. We're all on lockdown. And on top of that, I just launched my first ever book, which just feels surreal. And I'm Sarabeth. So I'm an author and I get to spend some time with you, and it's going to be really fun. And we're in this. So for me, it really didn't become real that this book was happening. The thought I had in my mind was, when I touch the book, that will be the moment. This is it. And guess what happened about 2 hours ago? I got this in the mail. This is the author's copy of the book, and it's gorgeous. This was the magic moment for me. And of course, it happened today. So that was super special. And honestly, I can't believe the timing of this book, right? Because the workforce is undergoing massive transformation. The unemployment number is up to 22 million people, which is hard to even fathom. And what a new world we're about to walk into, where the economy is shifting, work is shifting, identity is going to be shifting. So this fact that the book, More Than My Title, which is a book and a workbook, and it's all about helping people discover and learn about how do they use multiple identities, how do they connect them, and then create a new brand of their hybrid identity. That's what I'm about to share in this book that's being released and is on Amazon today. You can get it on that great little link right there by the book. So let's celebrate this, because we all need some good news and we need something to celebrate. And someone told me today they haven't been to a party in a long time, and I haven't dressed up in a while. It feels great. So before we dig in, I want to say a few things. First, just thank you a million times over. There were many dark nights and long weeks and years of research and talking and interviewing and getting ready for this moment. And it's really thanks to all of you. There's a tribe of people that put a book together. It's the designers and my publisher and editors, but it's literally the encouragement, the cheerleading, the coffee chats, the texts, the DMs that I got from so many people that are here today on this broadcast. I couldn't have gotten here without you. So thank you. Thank you for being in this work with me. I also want to introduce you to someone special. I have a co-host here with me today who is Tara Gilboa. She's a hybrid. Want to say hi?
Hi, everyone.
And we're quarantine buddies, so that's why she's with me. She's also managing the chat on the side, so she'll be sending notes if you have questions, whatever comments. And apparently people like to have little party games in the chat area. So maybe you guys can start one.
Absolutely.
Just careful. It can be a drinking game if it's a BYOB party. The more the merrier. So we'll see what happens. Cheers. Yeah. We're both actually, we've got our champagne ready. So drink along with us. And I'm really excited to introduce the DJ of the party, because what would it be without him? So please welcome, coming on up. This is Joel Davis. Joel, your video is coming. Sorry, 1 second. There we go.
Hey, Sarabeth, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Welcome,
Great.
Joel. DJ extraordinaire. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you. It's great to be here. Congratulations on that book launch. It must be so exciting and very timely to get that in the mail today so you could hold it up to the camera there.
That was
Super cool.
The craziest thing. I mean,
a fantastic turnout.
We have, I think, 150, 147 people. This is a huge turnout. I can't believe it. Joel, you and I met when you were doing the recording and the host of the Boulder Tech podcast. And that's how I got to know you first as a podcast host. But you are a hybrid, and you appear in the book, actually in a section, a chapter called Developing Your Professional Identity, Your Hybridity. Tell us about your different hybrid titles that you have.
Well, as you mentioned, I produced the Boulder Tech podcast, and I produce a couple of other podcasts. I do some editing. So basically a lot of podcast work, which comes from my experience, 30 years this year, experience being involved in radio, mainly KGNU community radio for Boulder and Denver, where I'm a DJ and a producer and a bunch of other things. And I also am the resident DJ at Dojo 4. So I do a lot of music stuff, music curation. I like to be the DJ that's playing in places where people show up and it's like, wow, it's weird that there's a DJ here, but it kind of works. Right. Like a virtual book launch, for example, or a gallery, or being the resident DJ in a software development shop. And in addition to that, DJing and podcasting, I'm also a poetic justice of the peace. I do custom personalized wedding ceremonies, and I've been doing that for about 15 years and love to be there and facilitate people's commitment to one another.
Joel, the thing you forgot to say is that you call yourself a vibrarian, which is...
I am the vibrarian, yes.
Yeah.
It's because, when people think of DJ, they think of sort of like unst party house music. But no, I'm a lot more eclectic than that. I play a lot of music that a lot of people haven't really heard before. I specialize in music from around the world. And so basically kind of my mission in terms of music is to help connect you to the music you didn't know you love.
I love that. I mean, your title, vibrarian, is a hybrid word, which is my favorite thing. Vibrate and librarian kind of combo. And all the other titles and identities I've learned about you just really impressed me. So thank you so much for being part of this and bringing the students, because I think we're all tired of the boring Zoom meetings with just colorful backgrounds of beaches and sand. We need music to spice it up. So Joel's going to be playing transition music with all my guests, and you'll be hearing them in the background, keeping the beat. Thank you, Joel.
Thank you, Sarabeth.
Okay. I also just want to acknowledge all of you, the attendees that are here, because that's what makes the party. So a couple things. One, there's some poll at the bottom. If you click on that button that says polls, and there's 2 polls we have. One is to figure out where you're from. We've got people in Colorado, people outside the state, even international guests. And then what's the current state of your identity? How do you see yourself right now? Take the poll so we can get to know you a little better. And in the meantime, like any good party, I'm going to talk about a little party etiquette. So there's a couple of things I want you to think about. I mentioned the chat already. So we want you to be using the chat box. Also, if you can tell a few friends about the book, heck, have some party crashers. Go send some DMs and tweets and texts right now. Bring more people to the party. There's going to be a cheat sheet that Tara's going to put a URL in the chat in a moment. And if you just want to copy and paste some text to put on your social, that's really easy. There's also this really cool thing in Crowdcast called Clip Moment. You'll see it in the bottom box. Anytime we're doing different content, different interviews throughout the broadcast, just do Clip Moment. You can quickly push it to some social that you do, and that would be awesome to help spread and share. And last, I mean, goes without saying, can you leave a rating or review if you read the book on Amazon? That just really helps with those rankings. So I'd really appreciate that. And because you're my special guest, I have a gift for you. So everyone that's watching the live broadcast, so just for the next hour, go to this link, morethanmytitle.com, and you'll /free treat, and you'll get a free copy of the digital workbook. So the workbook comes in a print copy, and it has all these different tools and cool graphics on literally step-by-step how to find your hybridity. But because you're my friends and you're part of this launch party, here's your party favor. Go to the link and get the free PDF. I hope you enjoy it. This is how the party's going to run. I'm going to give a little book overview in a moment, and then we have a bunch of guests you're going to hear from. I really wanted to bring the book to life because how often do you get to meet the people in the book? These are going to be little taste tests, about 3 to 5 minute interviews back to back, because I think I've got 8 guests that I'm bringing on because it's the party and I was like, everyone should be here. We'll do a quick peek of the workbook at the end, and then I'll save time for Q&A. And if you have questions, pop them up in the chat and we can try and get them while you're talking. And let me tell you about me. And some of you know me, some of you know my backstory, and maybe some of you're like, who's this girl? I've never seen her before. Well, I'm Sarabeth, and I call myself a creative disruptor. That's my hybrid title, but I didn't always used to see myself that way. It's taken me a lot of reflection and a lot of research and time to realize that's who I am. That's my true professional identity. Because my background started as being an artist and being an educator, but I was only seen as one thing or another thing. I was never really all of the things that I felt I could be in my work. I didn't want to just pick a job based on one of my identities. And I went back to grad school and I became a researcher, and designer has kind of been part of me all the time too. And I realized, how do I find a role that embraces all of these parts of myself? Is that even possible? And that pain point, that struggle, I realized wasn't just something I was experiencing. I've talked to hundreds of professionals from all different backgrounds: physical therapists, financial advisors, freelancers, entrepreneurs, artists. Everyone has a struggle with, how do I tell people what I do? They want to just see me as one thing or the other. And that's when I realized I'm a hybrid. I'm a combination of all these things. And I didn't know how to tell people that. So the reason I wrote this book is because I wanted to help people see who they really were and how to express that. The things I was really hoping were to give people permission to be all of their different identities, and to learn how to articulate who are you when you combine your identities together. There aren't great tools out there that support that. And I also felt we were missing language. People didn't know that the term hybrid existed. We have cars that are gas and electric. We don't call it a gas electric car, we call it a hybrid car. We have hybrid professionals in the workforce, and they've been hiding for years. And now is the time to embrace it. And that is why I wrote this book. I want to transform the paradigm that we don't see workers as one thing or another anymore. So the framework goes like this. By the way, these are just a snapshot of me and some of my different identities over time as a facilitator and an artist and a researcher and a graphic illustrator. People saw me as one thing, but never all of these things together. So my framework of professional identity goes like this. There are 3 types of experts. There are 3 types of professionals. One type is singularity. We call those people experts or specialists because they have one type of talent or skill that they're really known for. The next type is multiplicity. People that have many different identities, more than one. And those have a lot of names, all those multi-talented, multi-passionate, multi-anything, or job crafters. You can see the words. But the last kind is somewhere between those two, right? You have experts and generalists. So what's that combo? That's hybridity. Those are people that integrate. My definition of a hybrid professional is someone who integrates professional identities and works from those intersections. Integration instead of segregation is the difference, and that's where your unique value lies. That's your secret sauce. I use this analogy of pizza a lot because it's easy to get. Pizzas can have a lot of ingredients, right? Those can be your different identities. But we can name pizzas different kinds of names because they taste different and they are flavorful and delicious because they're so unique. That's how I think about my hybridity. I have ingredients and I use them in different ways. And that's why I'm so special and unique in the workforce. That's what I want people to know me for and hire me for. There are so many fun hybrid titles, hybrid job titles out there, like Project Firestarter, Therapist, the groundbreaking storyteller. Those names represent people that are doing work that's hybrid work. I call myself a creative disruptor. And there are famous hybrids and everyday hybrids. People like Michelle Obama and Bono and Lady Gaga, they are their brand. They do so many things. You would be stuck trying to figure out how to tell somebody, well, are they the actor or the philanthropist or the singer or the songwriter or the producer? They just do too many things. But we know them because of all the things they stand for. And people like you and me, we are hybrids like them too. And the book talks about famous hybrids and everyday hybrids. So part one of the book, it's in 3 parts. Part 1 is just about discovering who hybrid professionals are, kind of getting the lay of the land, and talking about how do you answer that what do you do question. There's actually a lot of shame hidden in people. They don't feel good that they have to hide their identities. They don't know how to talk about themselves. Part 2 is a path toward hybrid professional identity. That's where I get a little more theoretical. I start to talk about emerging hybrids, established hybrids, and the quintessential question, what happens at the intersections of your professional identities? I unpack that a lot in part 2 because, to be honest, no one's ever been asked that question before. That question is probably the only way to understand what your hybridity is, but yet we've never thought about it. So I have a whole chapter about the intersections. And then preparing for a future of hybrid professionals is part 3. There's some tips in there for recruiters and managers and employers because, heck, how do you recruit and train and manage a hybrid professional? They need some different things. And I talk about future forecasting and some trends and things that are happening in the workforce that really show why hybrids are a major part that will be critical for years to come. But part of the book is the workbook. They're sold separately, but the book needed to have a workbook because so many people were asking me, well, how do I find my hybridity? I need tools to figure out how to articulate this. And the book really just talks about what hybridity is and why it matters. And then the workbook are those tools. So now I would like to move into my guests. I am so excited for this first guest to come up. Her name is Chrissy Shea. She's the CEO of Project Glimmer. The reason I have Chrissy as part of this is because the book actually has a social cause. So I didn't want the book to just be about me. I really wanted to do good in the world and impact not just the workforce, but also start to showcase how do we empower other people. And Project Glimmer is just that. It is a nonprofit that supports at-risk and foster young girls to see themselves as professionals and get role models and mentorship into who they can become someday. And that just felt like the cause that really fit the mission of the book. So I'm going to welcome Chrissy to the stage for a quick conversation.
Hi.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for being here. It's working. Technology. How are you doing, Chrissy?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Tell us where you are right now.
I'm in San Francisco. We had a little bit of a heat wave this week, which was amazing. I And my kids are on spring break, so that was interesting. Yeah, trying to work. But I got to take them to the beach, so that's good. That's good.
Lucky
So at the beach.
Well, tell us a little bit about Project Glimmer and what it does.
So Project Glimmer is a national nonprofit organization. And really, we were started by a pretty well-known venture capitalist here in San Francisco. Her name's Sonia Perkins, about 10 years ago. And it started because she had found out that the teenage girls in San Francisco specifically were being forgotten during the holidays. It literally with our San Francisco firefighters toy program. And
Wow.
These girls didn't receive gifts. They got nothing. They had no one. They were being left and forgotten. And she started Project Glimmer to solve that problem. And that first year, her and her friends donated 800 gifts to the toy program. And now, just this past year, in 2019 alone, we gave almost 200,000 gifts nationwide in all 50 states.
Oh my gosh.
And really, it started with the idea that this gift was going to make her feel loved, make her feel worthy, and make her feel that she mattered. So it was less about the gift itself, although no gift can disappoint. But more about the power of what that meant. So yeah, that's how we were started. We have many other programs now, 10 years later. We have career days, which is really in line with what you're talking about today. And I'm sure we'll get into it a little bit more. With a lot of our corporate partners, it's called Work Your Magic, a day of empowerment. Every girl has her own magic power/powers. And sometimes she just needs to hear from other women and hear about their paths. And every path is jagged. It's never a straight line, right? I
love that term.
Know where you're going, and you can't really be what you can't see. That's one of the biggest things we believe at Project Glimmer. She can't be something that she doesn't know exists. So we try to help her see those things.
That's incredible. Yeah. I'm really struck by the days of empowerment because I believe role models have transformed who I've become because I've seen what's out there, and that's changed my mind. And me acting as a hybrid has helped other people see their own hybridity and that that's even an option. So just one last question I'm noticing in the chat here, people were saying, can you come to rural communities? Are you helping any of the rural towns?
That is a great question. We do distribute essential products and gifts to rural communities all over the U.S. Specifically with the Days of Empowerment, we've hosted them mostly in urban cities. But what's interesting is that this time frame, this pandemic, has really pushed our organization to take what was a 5-year goal of creating virtual content and engaging women in communities all over to be able to participate. We're like rapidly fast tracking that. So our Day of Empowerment is actually going to launch with its first, what we're calling Empower Hour, where we are gathering groups of women together to be able to share their career path stories with these girls, similar to what we're doing today, similar to what you're doing. So we will have that opportunity, and we will be launching those pretty much every couple weeks starting soon. So I'm really excited about that. So if you work for a company or a group that has kind of a diverse group of women that can share not only what they do, but the path to how they got there. If these girls can see other women overcoming obstacles to get to where they are, then they can see themselves there. So we are working with lots of different companies already. So yes, please, that's definitely going to be one of my one of the ways that you can help.
That's fantastic. Before we sign off, tell us how we can find out more about Project Glimmer. Okay,
so the first thing, please follow at Project Glimmer. Mostly we have an Instagram presence where we're active there. Please visit our website, and also please email me, Chrissy@projectglimmer.org. Hopefully you can reach out to me again, these days of empowerment, which we're going to be launching virtually very, very soon. If it's something that you think you have a group of women that would be willing to come together and share their path, share their obstacles, and share their stories about where they've gone and where they're going, please reach out to me, because we're already like filling the calendar, and we are wanting to have representation from Colorado. We don't yet, so on that program. So please, we would love that.
You will have Colorado after this book launch. Got your email in the chat. I'm thrilled to have you be connected with the book work, and I hope we stay in touch for a really long time. Thank you so much.
Congratulations. I'm so proud to be a part of it.
Okay, I'm going to start off with Chrissy. And next up, we have Miss Tiffany Josephs. So she is one of the first guests that actually also appears in the book. And Tiffany calls herself a magic maker, and her work is called Magic Carpet Life. It's gone through a lot of evolutions. She has a very secret sauce hybridity that I can't wait for her to share with you. So please welcome Tiffany Josephs. Hi, Tiffany. Welcome.
Hello.
Cheers. How are you?
I'm so good. Is this working? Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
I love when a virtual plan comes together.
It's happening some way, somehow. Go figure. I just want to jump right in. You've been on quite a professional journey. You've had many twists and turns, and you are one of the 4 case studies that I feature in Chapter 8, which is Stories from the Intersections. And so the intersections are really hard for people to conceptualize because it's just an abstract space. And I captured a story about you doing a retreat in Santa Barbara where you were making magical things happen. Can you remember some of that and share maybe some details of what your hybridity looked like when you were doing that retreat?
Yeah, absolutely. Believe it or not, that particular moment was 5 years ago, thanks to Facebook reminding me with the memories. And that event had a combination of women, hybrids themselves, who were, some were executives, some were coaches, some were triathletes, and it was such a mixture. And I think I remember keeping the agenda very loose for that. Essentially, it was a leadership retreat. And I remember packing for the trip, and I just went through my house and I put stuff in a suitcase like Mary Poppins. I was like, oh, okay, that's a genie lamp, and oh, that's a swan, ceramic of a swan, and literally I was just putting random things in there with the intention that I would use it somehow. And then the moment came where one morning I just decided, you know what, we're going to do a scavenger hunt with it.
Yeah.
And we're going, and it was a beautiful grounds. It was like 2 acres on the cliffs of outside of Santa Barbara. It was stunning. And the mood was right. And we just, I went through the rose garden and over by the cliffs where we were like whale watching. And I buried things, like hid them underneath things. And then they had like a half an hour to find items. And when we all came back after people had gathered their treasures, they were to put meaning onto the items. So that was the general game that was played during that event.
You were tying together a retreat with symbolism, with adventure, with meditation and visualization. I mean, I've experienced some of your work in person, and you really blend an amazing amount of sensory things, and it's very reflective how you bring it together. How would you describe your different identities right now? What are your professional identities in this moment? Or like not the literal moment, but this moment of time.
The great big one?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's dynamic. And I think to me, that's the magic of a hybrid, is giving myself permission to let it emerge and let it be redefined, like especially in this time of incubation and where reflection is so strong. But for me, I really connect with the illuminator and the accelerator role that, and for me, that looks like I'm taking right now this sort of lifestyle brand of Magic Carpet Life, which is so much about elevating the emotional landscape of our inner life and moving that into more of the public sphere, corporate systems that are right now, poised for upgrade. Everything is changing. We don't know who we're going to be as a workforce after this moment with everything with COVID. And so I'm bringing that intentionally into the office life. And because I'm all about elevating the everyday. So right now for me, I'm like, hey, let's pick office. That's my background. I've done everything from being a minister in my early 20s to working at Homeland Security to, brand agencies. Like I've been in all these eclectic arenas, and to be able to bring this the concept of emotional wealth and everyday magic into the spaces that can receive it is what I'm really pumped about right now.
Yeah, I love how you're keeping carpet life in the work and business world, because man, do they need it, and spice it up. So they're going to read more about you in the book. If you want to put your information in the chat box after we go, make sure to share it so they know where to find you. Tiffany, thanks so much for joining today. It's so fun having you.
Thank you. I adore this. I'm so happy for you.
Thanks, Tiffany. Bye. So it sounds like people are using the little clip feature, which is great. So if you haven't tried it yet, go for it. And in the meantime, the next guest is Brian Corrigan. Brian is really, he's one of those people I've known for a long time, actually. And I always struggle to describe who he is and what he does, because he's literally a creator, a designer, a gamer, a placemaker, a community builder, a builder. Like, he's got a zillion ways that he works in the world. So let's welcome Brian up. Hey, Brian. Welcome.
Hey, I love your twinkle background.
Everything's sparkles today. The more the merrier. I love the suit and tie look. Look at you.
Oh, thanks. Well, thank you.
Totally.
Well, you gave me a reason to get out of my crusty t-shirt. So
what is it? Fancy on the top, comfort on the bottom.
Totally.
Right now? I got my slippers on. We're good.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you doing? Congrats on the book launch. I'm so excited.
So Brian, you appear in a chapter called "How Do You Answer? What Do You Do?" And specifically, you're in a section called "How to Introduce Yourself as a Hybrid," which I get that question a lot from people. So can you answer that for us, Brian? How do you answer? What do you do?
I'm like, who am I today?
That's a better question.
Right? Yeah. I think today I would introduce myself as that I'm a creative strategist that works to help communities be more equitable, vibrant, and fun. And then if people are really nerdy, I usually tell them that I work at the intersection of creative economy, technology, and community development.
Awesome. FYI, I'm getting a lot of compliments on your hair. I think people are digging the new look.
Yeah, well, it's like this is, it's going to be down to my shoulders here by the time I can get it cut. So.
I think we all have some COVID grooming going on these days.
Yeah, totally. I'm like, I kind of messed it up there. There we go.
That's great. So, Brian, I love that you use this analogy because you've been on panels with me with hybrids and such, and you've used two analogies I love. One is the Care Bear stare, and one is being the conductor of an orchestra when you just have hybridity. Can you explain what you mean by those two analogies for us?
Yeah. Well, first off, I love that you always make me remember what I've said on previous panels. Because I'm like, what did I say? No, I got these ones. So I think the conductor. So if you think about the conductor of like an orchestra, right?
Mm-hmm.
The conductor knows how to play all of the instruments. And because of that knowledge, they're able to go ahead and to actually make everyone play together and to really kind of understand what's working and what's not working. And to me, that's really like what a hybrid does, right?
Yeah.
And then if I remember correctly, with the Care Bear stare, like I think about all the personalities inside of me. And when they all like line up and they all do their Care Bear stare, that's like living in your hybridity, where like they all come together to like do something that they couldn't do just by themselves, right?
Yeah, I mean, the Care Bear stare, that power of bringing all of your parts together, and it is bigger than the one part alone. That's how I feel when I'm in my hybrid, because I'm using all of my best sides. And suddenly I'm like, this is me. This is what I've been waiting to be. So I love that analogy. Sorry, go on.
Well, and I think it's like really, you know, I think it gets into this idea that it doesn't have to be black or white, right? Or on or off. That we start to really kind of get into, like your book cover, the design of your book cover demonstrates, right? This like gradient, you know, that we can be multiple colors, and the blend is what makes us so interesting.
Yeah, when you and I were talking about the book cover, your first comment to me was, it should be a gradation. It's about the merging where you can't tell one from the other. It is just a spectrum. And that is truly what I'm trying to get across in the book. Let's stop with the binaries. People aren't just an expert or a generalist. You can be all the things in between. How do we talk about that?
Yeah, well, and I think it just is like, we're getting into this next stage, right? Where we like things that were like really definable, easy to digest, just those yes or no, like really kind of answers. But now it's just like, let's dig a little bit deeper. Let's like actually invest some time to get to understand someone and the experiences, right? That they bring to the table, and really that blend that allows them to do something that no one else can do.
No one else can do. You took the words from my mouth. Well, I love this. People are going to read more about your hybridity in the book. Yeah. Thank you for being at and for being at all the panels. And for Brian has probably had the most conversations and breakfasts, and we've been talking about hybridity for a while. So thank you for everything, Brian. I'm going to sign off with you.
Thank you.
Bye. My next guest is a guy named Justin Gitlin, and Justin is actually friends with Brian, and I met them together because they were working on this really cool project a number of years ago called Oh Heck Yeah. Many of you that live in Denver and Colorado, you're familiar with the 16th Street Mall. It's a big pedestrian commercial part of downtown Denver. Well, they took over the 16th Street Mall and projected virtual interactive video games that required Microsoft Xboxes, so that people on the street were playing together and interacting with these games that were on huge screens in the middle of a city. Who does that? That was really my first experience of this is hybridity in action. And Justin was really the digital coding. I don't know. He has talents in technology that I've never seen before. So I want to welcome Justin up. Come on, Justin. Welcome, Gitlin.
Hello, thank you.
Talk show, book launch.
This is so fun.
What are we doing here?
Everything. We're having a hybrid experience.
I think we are. I'm trying to break the mold of what online virtual events have been. How does this feel so far?
Way more of a party than all of my Zoom calls and meetings.
Yeah, where are you right now? What are we looking at?
This is home. Just chilling.
chilling at
At
home.
the desk. Yep.
Good. Way to stay at home. Good job. So Justin, you're going to do a better job of explaining yourself than I can. Tell us about who you are, what you do.
This is a great question. I guess what I would say to people like in the biz is that I'm a creative developer, meaning largely software development, but also multimedia development, technical direction, animation, music, all sorts of stuff. I've also been using another title depending on where I am, experiential software developer.
Ooh, I like that one. You know, the comment you just made about changing your title depending on who you're with or where you're at, I think is really true for hybrids. We're shape-shifting based on place and time. So I get that. Yeah, you're a musician. You have a DJ name. Don't you have a music thing?
It's cash flow.
Right. So you've got the music side.
And now that name, it used to be my music name, and now it's just my name for coding, for everything. That's where I am on the internet. I used to keep them separate. Like, here's my music world, here's my professional coding world, and they just it made sense to bring it all together.
Would that be the hybrid? I just heard.
That was my hybrid moment.
That was the moment. So you're also in chapter 8. You're one of the case studies that I featured because you do work with really interesting clients like Nike, and I don't have your resume in front of me, but you are one of those people that like you walk into a store and you're like, that is the coolest like installation technology thing I've ever seen. And Justin's the mind behind the madness. Can you tell us a little bit about a hybrid project you're currently working on or one of your favorites you've done recently?
Geez, hybrid projects. I mean, I guess all of them sort of are recently, and you brought up a lot of the work I've been doing for Nike. So I'm the sort of technical director behind retail experiences at Nike's flagship stores in New York City mostly, and we do other stuff with Nike across the country. And those projects are so cool because I am sort of sitting in the middle of people who are doing environmental design, like designing the space, animating for all of the screens, doing the brand design for sort of the entire environment, giving me graphics to put on my screens. Recently, I've been doing more lighting. So my last big project in New York had an enormous ceiling of just physical lights that I was animating with code. So both doing interactive things on screens, things on physical lighting, and then audio. So kind of taking my past history as a musician and working with designers and animators, and I'm just sort of the glue that brings all of these different aspects together and creates this really hopefully magical experience for visitors.
That's incredible. That word you just used, glue, to bring all the parts together. I mean, you have to understand how all the things are operating and what the timing is and the deliverable. And I think that's kind of what Brian was saying. You're the conductor of all these pieces. So that's a really special thing. I mean, you do things. When I think the quote we had about you in the book is people just say what you do is magic because they don't know how you do it. Is that right?
If I'm doing it right, it's hopefully magic. And like, I don't know what everybody's does really, and that's what's so great about collaborating, but at least knowing a little bit and being interested and being able to empathize with all of these other professionals who you get to collaborate with, that's where the magic happens.
Well, thank you for being part of the book and just being a supporter of the work. For all my guests, and including you, Justin, put your info in the chat so people can find you later. And I'm going to sign off. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Great job. Looking forward to the book.
Thanks, Justin.
Yeah.
Coming up next is Peggy Shell. But in the meantime, I just want to remind people that we have a special treat for you, this free copy of the digital workbook. So don't forget to go to that URL if you just jumped on in. I want to make sure you all get a party favor at this awesome book launch. My next guest is not in the book, but I felt it would be really interesting to have someone who's in the world of recruiting and hiring and matchmaking right now, because what a strange time we're in. But also this book is very much about how do we help people figure out where they belong in the workforce. So I invited Peggy Shell to talk to us a little bit about her deep expertise in doing recruiting and what she's noticing and just some of her thoughts about the current moment and maybe what she thinks will happen next. So please welcome Peggy. Hello, Peggy. Welcome. How are you?
Doing well. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Having fun at the party, I hope.
So fun. I know.
A little
I
different.
definitely agree with Justin that it far surpasses the zillions of hours on Zoom calls that I've been having. So thank you.
You're welcome. Shout out to Joel too. I know people are loving the music. I am. So thank you,
For
Joel.
sure. Definitely.
So Peggy, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about your company and what you're doing?
Sure. Yeah. So I started a company about 10 years ago called Creative Alignments. We're about 30 people out of Boulder and Chicago and Denver, and we do recruiting. So we help companies that are growing with their hiring. So we've been building teams mostly in technology, so software companies and in food companies, and we work on an hourly basis. So it's different than most recruiting firms in that we partner with our clients as if we're an in-house recruiter as opposed to a contingency-based recruiter.
Nice.
Yeah.
Noticing even in the name of your business, Creative Alignments, I mean, that even has a little bit of a hybrid flavor that you have a different business model and different way of doing the work. So kudos.
You got it. Yeah. Thanks.
What are some of the things, granted, we're having this major shift in the economy and workforce right now. What are you noticing? Just a couple of thoughts.
Well, I mean, I can speak from my own experience, just that very, very quickly, in a matter of 3 weeks or so, most of our clients put work on hold or paused efforts. Most actually of our clients were not struggling, at least yet, and probably won't be, especially in the food space and funded tech companies. They were just uncertain, right? So they were nervous to continue forward with their hiring. And I think we'll see that for a little while, though we're already seeing some companies start to try to be a little opportunistic and say, oh, wow, there's some talent now flooding into the marketplace. Maybe now is actually the right time to be hiring.
So there is some hope for people that are looking for jobs, that it may not be as stark or scary, that there is potential.
Yeah, there totally is. And I mean, uncharted territory that we're in, everybody, right? Every day is a new day. And so who knows? And I think this all depends on how long this lasts and how creative companies get. But I was thinking a lot about the hybrid worker concept. And I think on one hand, as it becomes more of an employer market, it's been very employee-led, for years. As it becomes more of an employer market, I think it's going to be harder for a hybrid worker per se, per your terminology, to be seen, on traditional job boards and to have their resume really speak to what the company is looking for, because there's going to be a lot of, competition for the jobs. But on the other hand, cash is going to be tight. I think people are going to look for their money to go further. So people that can wear new hires that can wear more hats and have more to bring to the table. I think if the story's told right and it comes down to the personal branding piece, then I think they're actually better positioned in some respects.
Yeah,
So,
I do believe hybridity can become your competitive advantage. Like you said, if you're telling your
For sure.
story right. Yeah.
and I think it's hard. I mean, that's always been a hard thing. I've had people come to me for years with the same dilemma. I love your idea of figuring out how to brand kind of the combination rather than the slashes and bucketing. But we, as recruiters that charge for our time, we are often asked to go find the exact skill set and background. And so it comes down, we're often consulting with our clients about, well, let's talk about performance and results and let's get creative. And do they really have to have done that already? Because what's going to be the incentive for somebody to move in an exactly lateral move anyway? And so I think it's just going to be the combination of the creativity between the companies and the candidates that's going to help here.
Creativity is a great word for this. I think that's a lot of what I've learned with hybridity. It's when you look at your intersections, which people have never examined that before. They never said, who am I when I'm both an artist and a researcher and a designer? And how do I talk about that? but it takes a creative lens to come up with a name like the therapist or the project Firestarter, which gives a different thing. And maybe that will help employers see talent differently.
And I love the idea of owning that, right? As opposed to kind of shying away or creating the 2 or 3 different business cards. I love the idea of like being steeped in your hybridity, if you will.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that you're selling it for me. My dream is that employers will see the value and that people that are hybrids will own this in a way where they're like, it doesn't matter that I was project director of that and, VP of this. I am blank as my hybridity. That's who I am, regardless of what title I have, because your hybridity is what you create for yourself to tell the world who you are.
Yes, absolutely. And it'll come down. It comes down ultimately to the open-mindedness of the company and the hiring managers. But I think if you can, if you can tell this story loud enough and it becomes more mainstream, then I think it won't be so unusual to be looking for that.
Well, fingers crossed. That's why we've got 100+ people here helping build the movement with us. There is a chapter on recruiting and managing and retaining hybrids. So I'd love to get your tips and feedback on that when you see the book.
I would love to read that. I'm sure I'll learn a lot.
You and I will have to talk again in the future. I really appreciate you jumping on with me today. This is so fun.
Yeah, congratulations. Very exciting. It's been fun.
Thank you. Okay. Good luck.
All right. Take care. Thanks.
Okay, we've got another great hybrid guest coming up, just a few more. This person is also in the book, and it's Amy Reichlin. Amy is coming to us from Boulder. She's been evolving her hybridity as well. I think that's another theme I've learned. I interviewed people probably a few years ago that are in the book now. And since I've interviewed them, they've shifted gears or pivoted like many of us have. I've had like 3 jobs since I've started writing this book personally. So I'd love to welcome up Amy so we can hear her story. Come on up, Amy. Hi, you made it. You found me. Twinkle Sisters.
Yes, I had my disco ball on, but it wasn't quite jiving with the background. So,
this was a moment where I was picking the social isolation thing because you have like a garage full of costumes and toys and props. And I wanted to just come raid it and be like, can I have banners and disco balls and crazy stuff, right?
Yes. One of my isolation hacks has been to randomly send jumpsuits to people in the mail. It's been very fun.
Oh, that is fantastic. Well, tell us where your hybridity is today. So just as a side note, you're also in chapter 8, the book about the stories and the intersections. But I think you've evolved a little bit since we wrote that, or since I wrote that section about you. So where are you in your thinking right now?
Well, I would say, thanks to you who validated and actually helped me see what I was up to. I guess, I'm just fearlessly always innovating and evolving, like you said, and trying things. And so right now I'm in my new office space, which I got in January, and basically painted the walls white, and it's got a huge facilitation space and a couple offices, one of which I turned into the greenhouse, the Zen room. But as I sat with it, I was like, what does it want to be? And I thought, well, it needs that modern, sleek furniture that every valid professional has. And then immediately I was like, no. And I bought a little bit of artificial grass. And before you knew it, it became the garden. And so if you ever get to 28th Street and Valmont, come see me when we can do that. And the idea is inspired by a quote, bring yourself home to yourself, enter the garden. Most of my work is having people reconnect with and see and value and adore their inner garden that is there, always was there, and that we fail to tend, that we fail to weed, that we fail to nourish and allow to bloom in ways such as having multiple identities in our work. So if you come into the space, you can sit in grass, you can compost something in the worm jar, you can find a snake and look at fear, you can on the wall, there's a wall for what do I want to bloom? What do I want to grow? And any part of you that wants to grow is allowed to come in here. And the feedback I've gotten is that people's nervous systems kind of drop upon arrival. And that's what I like to do in my work is the minute you walk through the door is a threshold. And so that's what I love to do. And that's what I'm so blessed to be able to do with this garden. And during this time, I transformed my silly binder that I give people into a luscious hand-sewn journal with craft opportunities. And I feel like more and more getting into our senses is so important. So I do leadership development, and I do it this way, believe it or not. And I really, it works. We'll love it. I mean, maybe I haven't heard the bad feedback, but honestly, I've been so delighted to see people melt into the work.
I laughed out loud because the way you were describing the garden and nurturing that inner garden, and leadership development project or program. And it just threw me because that is what you do. That's the hybridity. Who would have thought you're using gardening and this safe space that's literally lowering their nervous system to show them how to lead? That's amazing.
It's scary work for people. So let's make it more fun.
You've inspired me, just even in your own facilitation skills. I got to observe you a few years back working with a team. I think it was a client, and they were, I don't know, practicing some team culture stuff, and you were bringing in neuroscience, but you had a whole experience of using cocktails and objects on the table, and I don't even know what else you were blending in. How did you design something like that?
Yeah, it was a no-brainer. So I was at a grown-up party one day, and I was talking to a group of grown-up men. I don't know that I'm a grown-up yet. And grown-up men, they said, what do you do as men? As people do sometimes. And I said, I do leadership development, and I teach things like emotional intelligence. And you could just see the eyes glaze over and the, well, who else might I talk to that might give me more value, right, in this moment? People are terrified of this work sometimes, or they don't know what it means, and it feels scary. And so really kind of in the next couple of days, I thought, I'm going to try this thing. And it's called Emotions and Potions. And I was into mixology at the time. And so I hired a mixologist, and we made the feelings frenzy and the amygdala hijack and the relaxation remedy. And so upon arrival, cocktails. Yeah. You're given this Caribbean blue cocktail, and you arrive to your seat, and there are neuroplastic gummy brains and crackers and cheese and empathetic enchiladas. And sometimes you feel like a nuts. And sometimes your mood dips. And the idea is, yes, you can learn. Yes, we are malleable. And yes, this is, being a human being is complicated and difficult, and no one gets a hall pass. And I swear to God, the most almost awkward, weird moment was having a group of men in hoodies hugging and crying and begging for forgiveness, like at the end of one of these. And it is the alcohol, no doubt. I do offer cocktails. But it also is just this like play that's like, you know what, take your defenses down. And also the idea is that sensory objects help you learn things and retain things more easily than just hearing and looking at a PowerPoint. So the idea is also to have other ways of remembering. So,
I mean, that's the brilliance that what you're doing isn't just fun and interesting facilitation. It's actually based in deep research, and there's a meta level of why you're doing what you're doing. It's not just about the cocktail, it's all the layers of memory that you're building to get people to continue afterwards. And then your play on words, which is fantastic. People are saying they need the dip now and they want one of those drinks. So you inspired, I think, the audience.
When we can socialize people, we will.
Yes, we will. And then sequins. People are saying they need more sequins in their wardrobe. So
I knew I'd wear that for you.
Yes. We'll exchange clothes too. I love to imitate your as much as you do me. Fantastic. Thank you for letting me put you in the book and share your work, and make sure to tell people where to find you in the chat. Thanks for Amy.
No, thank you. See you later. Bye.
Oh my gosh, this is so fun. We've got another great guest coming right up. I forgot to switch my screen. Here we go. Julie Markham is my next guest who's in the book. And she was looking for a new role and has an interesting story in the book about what she was told by a recruiter at Google. And so I want to bring Julie up to talk a little bit about what she's doing. And she has also a really crazy background, going from a degree in real estate management, I hope I have that right, to startups. She was a gymnast at one point. She has done more things than most people I know. And I think she just turned 30 like last year. I might have that wrong. But anyway, let's welcome Julie on up.
same thing twice. I'm awkward when I speak. Ain't got the perfect smile, don't turn heads on my street. Trying to be a superstar like everybody else, but being myself is something I do well. Express yourself. So what you want me to do? Express yourself. You don't never need help from nobody else.
All right.
Yeah.
Hi. I did, and I've survived. I'm alive and breathing, so it's good.
And we all have to like give you tons of the feels and healing energy. Julie just is recovering from COVID that I didn't even realize. She emailed me today. She's like, yeah, I can jump on because now I'm recovered. I was like, are you kidding?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Julie, you're a trooper. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling better, but I will say everything that you've read in the articles is real about COVID, the chills, the fever, the extreme exhaustion. I wouldn't have survived without my partner, to be honest. So I'm glad that I have a quarantine buddy. But I'm healthy now, and I'm hoping, knock on wood, that I have immunity and antibodies. But some people are saying if you have COVID, you may be susceptible to get it again. So I'm hoping that's not real because I can't do it. But thank you.
And you're in New York, right? You've been in
I'm in Manhattan. I'm like right at ground zero, but it sounds like we in the city have reached what is our apex or our plateau. So I think I was just literally following the curve of our city.
This is crazy. One of my favorite things that I got to do the book launch online was I was like, suddenly my friends from all over the country, people that have been involved that aren't just here in Colorado, get to join. And so it's really cool that we have people that are from out of state. And thank you so much for drinking tea or whatever you did to just jump on with us today.
Well, and I know your question was back to Google, and kind of some of my hybridity. So I'll talk about Google, and I've had a industry crush on them from a really long time. Their innovation department. So I've been trying to figure out how to get into that org. And in the book, it kind of talks about how, in my experience, I was talking to a recruiter and I was asking them, like, how can I tell my story that matches what you need? And I actually loved what Peggy said earlier, where it's like, wait, life's complicated. Like, I don't need to be, simple in myself. Like, I can actually help with that narrative. Yeah. And so I think it was really important for me to realize that I don't need to box myself into job descriptions, that I could actually own or say like, yeah, I meet all of this on your JD, and I bring this additional aspect and multi-dimension. And that kind of leads to where I'm at now. I serve as the chief operating officer of an organization called Unreasonable, which is like a social impact accelerator program. We work with growth stage entrepreneurs to help them scale forward. But life happens when you're busy making other plans. And so I preemptively submitted a letter of resignation for my role back in December, so pre-COVID. And I gave them 6 months notice, trying to be really nice with the org, doing training of my new person. So I am actually entering into the job market with 24 million new friends.
Only 24,
So I'm actually relearning how to describe my hybridity and getting some of the reps in that story down so I can, figure out where I'm going to go next and how I can, use my different skills to get to my next thing.
Totally. So any thoughts on how you're thinking about your hybridity now, or is it too early?
One thing that, hybridity can come in so many different lenses. I've loved some of the other stories that people have told about, like, oh, I'm a musician and I'm a developer. Like, I do improv, and right now I serve as our CFO too at our company. So I call it Finance, and I tell all of our stories SNL style, but with the accounting backup. And so I'm like learning how to take that fun flair to my personality, but still have the professional rigidity that's gonna get me in the door. I don't know. I'm kind of testing reps right now in the market to kind of see what sticks.
Nice. Yeah. Well, let us know how that goes, or borrow a couple of Venn diagram tools from the workbook, because that seems to be one way to think about it.
downloaded that, so I'm actually going to use it. And I would say I just want to thank you so much for, what you've done and the book and everything that you're pushing out there, because I think it is so important. You can control a narrative by the way you tell it, right? And people have that power, the storytelling power, and you're giving vocabulary and like finesse around that. And I'm realizing that like my story and how I do that is really just comes down to how I want to package that up. So
yeah, it's you, like the other people I've had as guests, have a list of identities. And when you start to list them out, it doesn't make sense because they're really disconnected. But for you, you're like, but this is me. And one of the quotes I use sometimes is that it's about the relationships between the things. That's the story. You have to tell people how these things all connect and why you have that background. And then you emerge as the hybrid that they're like, oh my gosh, we have to have Julie because this is a dynamic, really one-of-a-kind individual. How else would we find this kind of talent? But yeah, that storytelling is hard.
Yeah, so I'll use your workbook. I'll report back.
If you have any tips. Julie, thank you so much. I'll let you rest and get healthy. It's so good to see you. I really appreciate you being part of this in so many ways.
Thank you so much.
Bye. We have one more guest. Her name is Katie Johnson, and she recently got a copy of my workbook a few weeks ago. And then right away, I swear, in like 2 days, reached out to me. He's like, Sarabeth, I've already been doing all the activities. This is amazing. And I'm confused about X step or this part. And I was just really impressed how much it had transformed her so quickly. So we're going to have a quick conversation about the workbook, and then I'll be open to any questions before we sign off. So let me pull Katie on up. Come on, Katie.
Hi. I'm well. How are you? You look great.
Oh my gosh, I'm having a blast. It's just, another day staying at home.
I need more sparkles in my wardrobe. That's what I'm taking away from this for sure.
Check. Everyone's sparkle lights, sparkle shirts, sparkle earrings. It just goes a long way.
It does. It really helps.
Well, you look great.
Thank you.
Tell me what happened to you when you got a copy of the workbook, because it just seems to light a fire in you.
Yeah, well, I am, as you know, a facilitator by nature. So I love the fact that it's very just do it yourself. I love the DIY nature of it. I would actually would love Julie to help if there's anything I can do. I'd love to swap storytelling with you because that was so helpful for me personally to just dig in and get my hands dirty and start whiteboarding out my identities on a whiteboard and going through it. I actually printed it all 76 pages out of your workbook back when we still had offices. So I still have my copy that is really helpful. And I feel like I just dug in and right away, actually filled it out. And now it's a real thing. So I can actually get the real one.
All the cool pages and steps. Yeah.
Yeah, that's way better than the janky one I made. But yeah, it was wonderful to just write in the book and actually start to do the activities on paper. For me personally.
And what was the step you got hung up on? Do you remember when you were like, I just don't know what I'm doing?
Yeah. So I'm obsessive. For those of you that don't know me, I'm very perfectionist about how I do things. And so there's a part where you kind of give a bunch of words, which is really helpful about all the words that you are. And you're kind of circle all of the ones you are. And I circled 50 words of the 120 or whatever you gave me, right? And then you were like, get it to 20. And I was like, I'm so good at this. I can get to 20. And then you were like, get to 3. And I was like, uh-oh. and so I couldn't get to 3. And I was obsessing about whether or not I was a storyteller or an empath. I was obsessing about whether or not I was a disruptor or an instigator or provocateur, right? And I called you because I was like, I think I'm doing this wrong because I'm obsessing about the words and I'm not able to move to the next part. And what was great about the workbook is if you just like when I facilitate, I tell people to trust the process, right? Trust me, I'm going to get you through it. And the workbook is great in that if you get hung up, you just go to the next step and you have designed it to unlock your people, right? So I just went to the next step and it was like, okay, I'm just going to pick 3 words and I'm going to get over the fact that each of them has an alternate word. And I was able to just go forward, and my hybrid identity was at the intersection and the magic was in the middle, as you kind of have said. So it really unlocked me to skip over being obsessive about whether or not I was a strategist or an architect and move on with my life. So
absolutely. I think words become something we get fixated on, and then they box us in, and these labels are what's holding us back. So one of the exercises in the workbook is to find your professional identities, and then I say remove them. You inspired me, so I did an upgrade to get the book ready for all of the, the book launch. And I added a new step that says, now, like, forget about the words you just picked, because it's about the intersections. And getting people to focus on what they're doing in those intersections, and then they can see a new name for themselves, because we get stuck on words. So I love that you shared that story and that you unlocked it. And, I welcome all of you out there. If you have questions on steps in the workbook, now that you have your free copy, please reach out to me. I love talking about this. I think it's interesting. And really, this work is done best when you're with somebody else. I've seen the best things in workshops when 4 people are working on their hybrid titles collectively, because they're like, oh, you should call yourself blank, or, oh, I think you're more of this. And it helps them have that mirror in the room. And then they're like, oh, that's great. Why didn't I think of that? So yeah, partners in this work is awesome.
Totally.
Anything else before we jump off?
Yeah, I think that for me personally, I ended up writing a Medium article about it. It's redefined my entire portfolio, which is going live next week. My whole portfolio has been redone. I'm not sure what's happening with my career right now. Also, in the time of COVID, you kind of have to be prepared. And so it's actually a good refresh to be able to speak about this. And like Julia, I'm actually trying to get the story down. So I'm still working on my own story. But it prompted a lot more. So I'm hopeful that everyone will see that once you start telling your story over and over again, you'll realize, oh, my portfolio is not telling the right story. My website's not telling the right story. My LinkedIn's not telling the right story. So I think if you give yourself permission to just trust the process and kind of work through the workbook, you will come out on the other side knowing yourself better than you did before, which is really a privilege. So thank you for that.
Yeah, this is a pause for everyone. So let's refresh and look at what we're doing and what we're telling people we're doing. And then look at all the parts, like your business card, your resume, your website, your portfolio. Are they sharing the same message about who you are today? Because it does take updating. It's like everything. The last part of the workbook has the hybrid professional identity elevator pitch. So I don't know if you saw that. That worksheet's on my website, but it's in the last part of the workbook. And it's a 10-second Mad Lib to kind of do the snapshot of your story. Like, how do you introduce yourself? What are your primary identities? Why do they matter? What are you affecting? Boom. So you guys can all get that in the workbook too.
I think honestly that actually set the skeleton for my website and my portfolio deck. So it's so useful that your work is fabulous. And I'm so grateful for you, Sarabeth. So congratulations on the launch.
Clip that moment. Thank you, Katie. I'm going to sign off. Thank you. So that wraps up our guests for the launch party today. I do want to just say one other thing, which is, this was the 5 steps that are in the workbook in case you're curious. Name what you do, drill down, investigate intersections, hybridize, and then own it. What's next, right? So the book is launched, woohoo! But this isn't the end, this is the beginning. So I want to keep having more interviews with hybrid professionals, because I'm even seeing in the chat as we've been doing the live launch, you all are saying, that story was great, I want to reach out to her later. I think we need more examples and role models of hybridity in action. What does it feel like? Where are people getting stuck? How do they evolve from being this many things to that many things, and tell a good story or the right story about themselves where people got it? It wasn't confusing. So I think more interviews will be coming, and I have a LinkedIn group that's about hybrid professionals. If you want to join that, I'll be sharing content. Also get on my newsletter. It's on my website. I'll be putting out information and events and other ways to stay connected. So now if you have any questions for me, is a great time to ask. Tara is helping do some chat messaging, so I'll look in the chat message with her. And while people are loading up any questions, I just really have to thank and give credit to Joel. He's been our amazing DJ this entire show, which I think everyone would agree gave it that pizzazz we've all been missing in every online meeting the last few weeks. Joel, you're awesome. Check him out at thevibrarian.co. Email him. We can put that in the chat as well. Meg Howard was my book cover designer. Thank you, Meg. You're awesome. The book looks great. Melissa Wilson's been my publisher. Denver Trademark Law has helped me with trademark. I have to give a shout out to Glider and the TEDx Boulder crew because I did a TEDx talk and that really helped launch me and helped me feel confident that this message mattered. So thank you all. And just every guest that is here today. Oh my gosh, thank you. Like this is a dream. I literally can't believe it's happening and that this is the way it launched with COVID and online everything. You all just energize me and I'm thrilled you've been here today. Any questions over there, Tara, that I need to pick up that I missed? Yes. Question. I work in higher education and we're just a bit hierarchical and pay a lot of attention to titles as a signifier of power and position. How do you suggest we talk about hybridity when it might not be respected or understood? Great question. I used to work actually in higher education too, so I can totally have compassion and empathy for that one. I have one little trick that when you're in a formal situation, like a big organization, and you have to use your title like director of blank program, you have to use that title. Like there's no way around it. That's what you've been assigned by that organization. But when I was in meetings and when it felt appropriate, I would say, hi, I'm the director of blank, but I also call myself a hybrid professional. I'm a creative disruptor, and that's how I do the work I do for this organization. So I would do a double intro. I would give my actual title, and then I would give my hybrid title, or I would just say, and I see the work I do as being a hybrid. So I planted that in there some way. The more I started to do that, the more people started to see me that way. They actually were like, oh yeah, Sarabeth's this director, but really she's this hybrid who blank. And I noticed that they would start to do intros on my behalf with that language that I used. So I think you'll be surprised if you start to use it and own it and start slow. It takes a little bit to get used to, and it's going to be a little unfamiliar. But eventually my boss and my colleagues were using it and referring to me that way. So I think there's ways it can catch on even in traditional hierarchical situations. And please DM me too. We can talk about this more. It's hard. I mean, we're starting a movement, new language, and this is unfamiliar. So let's all practice and see where it goes together. Any others? Oh, there's a bunch of questions. So if the potential employee owns the title, how does the employer post an open position? Oh, okay. So what I mean, this is how I'm going to interpret this question. When I say you own your hybridity, that means right now I call myself a creative disruptor. That's the title I've given myself for my hybridity. And that means that the titles I get if I work for an organization and have an employer, I have to use their titles too. But what I've noticed is when people lose their job or they're in a title that is just, it's like, you know, director of blank, like that doesn't mean anything. The title doesn't define you that your employer gave you. So when people have lost a job and they're like, oh, I'm not that director anymore. Like, who am I? What am I going to do? It's like, no, you know who you are. You have your hybrid title. I will always be a creative disruptor no matter where I work. So that's how I interpret owning your title. The hybrid title you have is yours to keep for forever in whatever job. But your employer title, yeah, they're going to call you coordinator, program person, marketer, sales, whatever, because they need to for their org. I hope that helped. What else? Okay, that was it. I just want to thank everyone. You're amazing. Joel, can you give us some outro music? And we're going to sign off. Bye.